calculated move, his first accomplice walks in just as the security guard begins closing the outside doors. As the second accomplice, here in a red jumper, positions himself behind the door. Inside, the first gunman draws his pistol from underneath his belt and orders the pharmacy attendant to open the grill door. Meanwhile, the security guard notices the ensuing scuffle and temporarily locks the door from outside just before the third accomplice and yet another fourth gunman in a cape chases the guard into the night, then returns. The last man stations himself outside to stand guard. The four men, all this while, boldly display their pistols to the frightened customers, oblivious of the CCTV cameras capturing their daring act. Once the grill doors open, the men swarm inside and straight into the accounts area, taking as much money as they can, whilst pointing the pistols straight to the faces of the scared attendants. They order the men to lie down. One of them, in a grey jumper, grabs a handful of scratch cards and stuffs them into his back pocket. They steal a cell phone from a seated customer and immediately walk out, using the cover of darkness to camouflage their mischievous deeds. The now visibly shaken clientele and attendants lock the door and phone the police. The entire ordeal lasting a mere 3 minutes. A 180-second robbery that leaves 350,000 shillings, a cell phone and hundreds worth of airtime vanish in an instant. Police are now on a manhunt determined to capture 4 daring men who rained terror on a group of innocent Kenyans without as much care in the world as even to cover up their own faces. Timothy Otieno, KTN News.
Police officers were forced to shoot in the air to disperse Jubilee supporters who wanted to interfere with CORD leader Raila Odinga's meeting in Nakuru County. The youth, mostly border riders, carried placards and demanded that the CORD leader leave the town immediately. Well, they chanted anti-Raila slogans as they marched towards a hotel where CORD leader was holding a closed-door meeting with party officials. The protests come just hours after the Nakuru Governor Kabogo said he will not allow anti-IEBC demonstrations in the county, terming them as a recipe for chaos.
These were the scenes in Nakuru Saturday afternoon. A hostile environment for CORD leader Raila Odinga. Journalists were not spared either. Reason, Raila Odinga is not welcomed in Nakuru County, at least for today. Raila Odinga was meeting CORD officials in this hotel before a planned rally, and when word went round that Raila is in town, rowdy youth led by Bahati, Member of Parliament, demanded that Raila leaves town. Police were forced to shoot in the air to disperse the rowdy youth. Raila, however, was forced to use the hotel's back exit to attend a public rally at the Mrakufu grounds in Kaptembo slum. He later addressed his supporters in Nakuru peacefully.
IEBC ilishiriki kwa wizi ya kura wakati uliopita. Mnaka hii kitabu inanyesha ati kuna watu 2 milioni ambao wanaingia kupiga kura, lakini hawakupiga mtu mwingine, walipiga kura kwa rais peke yake. Unaelewa?
Jubilee team joined by Governor Kabogo, Deputy Joseph Ruto and a host of MCS made their way to the grounds as Raila was winding up addressing the crowd. To avoid confrontation, Raila exited the grounds hurriedly, leaving the crowds to be addressed by Kabogo and his group. The Jubilee team used the same podium and public address system to address the small crowd.
na Nakuru ilikuwa kiojo. Try Naivasha a bit. You will not try again throughout your life.
Raila vowed to continue with his weekly demonstrations on Monday and Thursday next week until President Uhuru and his deputy accept on terms of the talks. Aaron Ocheng, KTN News.
Elsewhere, members of the Kikuyu community living in Uasin Gishu County today held a peaceful protest against Kiambu Governor William Kabogo. The residents jammed Eldoret streets holding placards and chanting anti-Kabogo slogans following his remarks that the Gema community will not automatically support Deputy President William Ruto in 2022 general election. Kabogo's remarks has elicited debate with a cross-section of leaders saying Kabogo's remarks were reckless and aimed at dividing the Kalenjin and Kikuyu.
Naomba rafiki yangu Kabogo, nafikiri hujaweza kuwa mara 4 kukua upande wa Rift Valley. Sisi ndio tunajua shida yetu ya Rift Valley, na tafadhali ile ulisema hiyo ni yako wewe mwenyewe, lakini si ya Wakikuyu au wakaaji wa Rift Valley. Tumekuonya, tafadhali pa ile vita yenu na baba yao usituletee upande wa Rift Valley, tafadhali.
The only thing which can make me demonstrate is when the peace is threatened. Na saa hizi vile tuko hapa, our peace is threatened by Governor William Kabogo kwa sababu ya matamushi yeye aliyotamuka. Sisi watu wa Rift Valley tunajua vile tunakaa na watu wetu wa Rift Valley na hatutaki mtu akuja atuingilie. Sisi tumeeneza amani na already tuko na amani tele, kwa hivyo hatutaki mtu mwenye anaharibu amani ambaye tuko nayo.
Maswali yangu kwa mtu anaitwa Governor Kabogo ni rahisi sana. Ya kwanza, kabla ya uchaguzi wa 2013, wakati kulikuwa na shida kati ya 2007 na 2013, hatujawahi kusikia sauti ya mtu anaitwa Kabogo. Na kama Kabogo wewe ni mwanaume kabisa, ile kitu ungefanya ungesema unapinga William Ruto. Simama kiti ya president, tusimamishe wewe 2012 na tusimamishe William Ruto, tuonyeshe wewe sisi tunasimama namna gani. Hatutaki upusi.
Let's now focus on an issue that is of concern globally, and the writing is on the wall for Dadaab refugee camp, and this is why. The government of Kenya has maintained it will close the camp in November. The United Nations High Commission for Refugees appealed to Kenya over the decision, and a number of refugees have approached the UNHCR to seek assurances on their future. Some are not willing to return to Somalia. We now take you to Dadaab, the world's largest refugee camp, beyond the figures and general image to people who want to be seen and heard. Here's Dorcas Wangira with that report.
Dadaab at the beginning of 2016 was 25 years old and almost 500,000 people strong. What started for 90,000 as a temporary camp became a city of thorns, an open prison in the desert, where those seeking sanctuary are neither allowed to leave nor work. The Kenyan government intends to close it in November. The UNHCR that pays for it has appealed to Kenya over the decision, but it's the people who live here under hardening sky that are most uneasy. Yusuf Mohammed came here in 1991. He is 65 and has 2 families, children born on Kenyan soil. He knows what the Kenyan government has said, but he is not ready to leave.
I can go back to Somalia, but I know it's still not safe. I'm afraid of Al-Shabaab. They take our children without our consent.
Abdulaziz Farah was born here. At 18, he's deeply uncertain about his future.
The refugee appeal in the Somalian people, also Somalian has a lot of problems.
Of the 343,884 refugees who live in the camp, 9 out of 10 are from Somalia, others from South Sudan and other countries. Many have visited UNHCR field offices seeking to know their plight. In his first year, Filippo Grandi has a daunting task. There has been donor fatigue over the years. With the world's eyes on Syria and camps like Zatari in Jordan, Dadaab has gotten little attention.
In a world that does not seem to respect our values, solidarity and support to refugees, this should be an example to everybody.
The durable solutions to refugee displacement remain: voluntary return to the country of origin, local integration in the country of asylum, or resettlement to a third country. Here, many would rather relocate to another camp, such as Kakuma, than go back to Somalia.
The international community has not been very forthcoming in investing in Somalia, and my strong appeal is that if we want repatriation to be successful, Dadaab to close, and this is what we eventually all want, but we have to do it in a manner that allows people to go back to their country and remain there and become a contributor to the reconstruction of Somalia.
There are hopes that the government will reconsider its approach. For now, under the Dadaab horizon, where thorn trees sometimes flourish and become green, those who live here don't want to be viewed just through the lens of terrorism. They want the world to see them not just as unwanted refugees, but a community of people who have known each other for years and built a trust that they often leave their doors open. Dorka Swangira, KTN News.
So, while giving reasons why the Dadaab refugee camp had to be closed, the government of Kenya cited security concerns, so we'll stay on that line. And Kenya has suffered mightily at the hands of the Al-Shabaab, whose deadly attacks have left a painful void in this region's schools. That is Mandera. Our reporter Stanley Mbichu has just returned from Mandera, where he was on a fact-finding mission on how schools in the county are coping with the introduction of laptops in schools. Take a look.
The children here are going to be very fortunate because you're going to start using these devices from class 1.
Keeping up with the high-end education technology in northeastern Kenya is Mandera County. An ICT body, which is the lead agency in implementing a laptop program here in Kenya, supplemented by other key organs, among them the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, are here to officiate a positive turnover of this region's education system that for many years has been attributed to poor resources and high poverty index.
You first of all learn how to use the devices. Mkitoka hapo, mtaenda kitu tunasema using to learn. Semeni using to learn.
Early Childhood Development Program, ECD, in 3 selected schools across each county will be facilitated with digitized learning content for classes 1 and 2.
We have been the worst performing county in terms of national examination performance. In 2013, when the devolution started, we had a mean score of 182. As we speak now, in the last KCPE, we had a mean score of 252, and that is a positive increase. In terms of KCSE, we had an A in the first in the history of Mandera County. At the same time, more than 450 candidates qualified to join the Kenya public universities. Compared before the revolution, we had only 20 candidates joining the universities.
We'll be using our same students who are from Mandera, who have gone through the university system, to now support and maintain the equipment, which gives us an opportunity to enhance and create more employment to the people of Mandera and to the whole country.
Since the advent of devolution, positive change is slowly showing up. Mohammed Abdi, Mandera's chief education officer, is contented about the future of education in this arid land.
Technology is something very important for the county, and we have been relying mostly on the neighboring countries, particularly Somalia, where it was more advanced in technology, and yet there was no government. Once we have our schools digital, then we'll enhance our technological and innovations within the society.
However, in order to further improve the performance of Mandera County in future, a myriad of challenges facing school-going children has to be addressed.
There are quite a number of children in the rural areas which require a lot of deworming, because when I went on a spot check, I find quite a number of them having ringworms, and most likely not because stretching in class.
There's a lot of malnutrition because the spending power of the people, the poverty index is very high. So you find there's a lot of case of malnutrition, and malnutrition will also affect the child ability to develop, grow, and also it also interferes with his education.
For the last 1 year, there has been no security threat from the neighboring war-torn country of Somalia that saw teachers flee Mandera after a series of terror attacks.
We have been in peace for the last 1 year, and the county government has invested quite in security and supporting the teachers and all in the education sector, particularly to retain these teachers at the county level. We have In fact, what they did was they posted the KPR along the border of Somalia, where most of the problems were occurring. And so those teachers now are working at their stations with the support of the KPRs paid by the county government.
Surprisingly, amid many other challenges, children from Ethiopia and Somalia cross over to the Kenyan soil and are facilitated with education in equal measure by the Kenyan government.
Education has no borders. If you're in Busia, children from Uganda study in Kenya. You cannot stop children coming from Somalia, Ethiopia, wanting and having the desire to learn in Kenya. So our schools have accepted them. They're in ECD classes, they're in other classes, and I think that will create a cohesion between the two countries which are bordering one another. We support them so that we coexist. We require one another. Human beings depend on one another.
Of the 47 counties here in Kenya, Mandera has always been ranked as the poorest performing county in the education sector. But with the introduction of this technology, it is expected that the performance index of this county will increase by a considerable margin. Stanley Mbichu, KTN News, Mandera County.
Free laptops, will it make a difference in the lives of children in Mandera or not? Thank you for staying with Weekend Prime. Let's now take a short break. We'll be back.
Commissioned the tamaking of Tala Oldonyo Sabok Road before proceeding to Masinga to commission the Masinga Water Project. He urged local leaders to work with the government to develop the region.
Nahimizia viongozi na kuambia tufanye kazi pamoja kwa sababu mashindano wakati wake utakuja. Na wakati wa mashindano ukija utapata nafasi wakati huo tushindane. Lakini wakati huu mwingine, njoo jameni tufanye kazi tuinue hali ya maisha ya wananchi.
Ile tunafanya sasa ni kuungana na sisi viongozi wote tufanye kazi ili 2017 kila mtu afanye mtihani, yule atapita aendelee, yule ataanguka abaki nyumbani.
Sisi hapo Ukambani tumesema hatutaki mambo ya kutupa mawe. Kwa sababu mawe ni rasilimali ya Ukambani. Tunauza kwari zetu ndio zinajenga Nairobi. Tukiona mawe inatupwa tunasikia uchungu kwa sababu hiyo ni hardcore. Hiyo ni pesa. Hiyo ni pesa ya Wakamba inayopaswa kujenga nyumba na maendeleo. Kanati wewe. Sisi Wakamba magurudumu ya gari taya tunatengeneza viatu. Tukiona watu wanachoma taya tunasikia uchungu.
Last month, CORD Co-Principal Kalonzo Musyoka had promised to join the president in the tour. But Wiper MPs led by Kitui Senator David Musila on Friday claimed they had not been included in plans for the visit and that Kalonzo Musyoka had equally been kept in the dark.
We are welcoming the president to our region. We don't know where he will be because we have not been given the program, but we will do our best to follow. Our party leader cannot be there. I know we had indicated he was very keen, and I want this to be underlined. He was very keen to be there and welcome His Excellency the President of the region. I think we are lesser persons. We can run around and look for the president, but we don't expect our party leader to look around for the president without a program.
The leaders, however, urged residents to welcome the president during the tour.
We want it to be very clear. For development, we are united. We want the government to give us development because it is our constitutional right as a community. But when it comes to voting, of course our people are clearly in coalition, and no amount of cohesion or development will make our people change. That should be very clear to anyone going to our region.
The president was also expected to launch construction of the Kitui-Kibwezi-Sekuru Road.
All we are appealing is that launch, let it be real. After the road is launched, we would like to see it being done to conclusion. We say this because other projects in the region have been started for political reasons, only to be abandoned after the elections.
While in Mwingi, President Uhuru urged Kenyans to remain united so that the country can continue being an investment destination of choice. Uhuru also called on leaders of the opposition to drop their posturing and engage the government in constructive criticism. Patrick Amimo, KTN News.
So, you all remember last year when there was that Ebola outbreak in West Africa, especially in Liberia, that caused quite a scare in the entire world. He was among the 170 health workers who were flown to West Africa early last year to help contain Ebola outbreak. He is still there, even after most of his colleagues came back home. Tonight on Daring Abroad, our special correspondent Alex Chamwada speaks to Dr. Romeo Orone on his daring role in fighting Ebola in Liberia.
Dr. Romeo Orone works at the Elwa Mission Hospital in Monrovia, the capital city of Liberia. This is one of the centers that were crowded with Ebola patients during the outbreak that was described by the World Health Organization as the deadliest in history since the discovery of the virus in 1976. The epidemic in West Africa was first reported in March 2014. The most affected countries were Liberia, Sierra Leone and Guinea, with the entire Kenyan team under the UN and African Union initiative comprising 170 health workers.
First, we were taken to the ETUs, where there were patients who were still in the Ebola treatment unit. ETU is an Ebola treatment unit. But by then, when we came, at least the efforts which were there prior to our arriving were beginning to bear some fruit. And the second role was to restore healthcare, because the epidemic had a devastating effect on the healthcare system, because healthcare workers were the first to bear the brunt of the epidemic, because they were the first people to see the victim. Before they actually knew it was Ebola, it was too late. There were the people who were seeing. So most of them, unfortunately, passed on.
Dr. Orone is a general practitioner. He was a tutorial fellow at Moi University School of Medicine when the calling to serve in West Africa came.
Sometimes you'd contaminate yourself, of course, with fluids, and it was scary. But through encouragement with fellow healthcare workers, we got the courage and we pushed on.
According to the World Health Organization, the epidemic killed 5 times more than all other non-Ebola outbreaks combined. The total number of reported cases was about 28,600. Over 11,000 people had been reported as having died from the disease in 6 countries by 13 January 2016, when the World Health Organization declared the last of the countries affected, Liberia, to be Ebola-free.
The lessons are this. I think as Africans, we have to really invest in the things that really matter. Health being one of them, being a pillar, and education. And that's why I believe in public health, because prevention, they say, is always better than cure.
And why is Dr. Orone still in West Africa?
The survivors had many issues that needed to be sorted out. So they asked me whether I could be their medical coordinator.
Kenya's Principal Secretary for Health, Dr. Nicholas Muraguri, praised the role played by the Kenyan health workers.
In fact, they remained 2 more months to help with service delivery. So we're delivering babies. They were vaccinating babies when the Ebola outbreak was over. People cried when it was time for them to come back.
He says Kenyan health workers, quote, are a brand out there.
We have requests to send health workers across the region. In Namibia, for example, this year they want 300 nurses.
But with a caution.
Of course, we want a structured way of people living in the country. We don't want people to be abused, paid less. For example, we want a government-to-government arrangement. For example, with Namibia, we have a memorandum of understanding of how people go, how they be paid, and the embassies are where they're involved. And so it's a very organized way of moving people.
For Daring Abroad, I'm Alex Chamwada.
That's why they say being a doctor is a calling. All his friends came back home. He stayed on to try and make a difference. Okay. So let's bring you back into the country. Kalaza is one of the neglected tropical diseases common in Baringo, Isiolo, Marsabit, Turkana, Wajir and West Pokot counties in Kenya. Each year, 5 million people are at risk of the infection. 4,000, most of whom are children, get infected, and half of them have difficulty in accessing medical care. As some seek treatment from traditional healers first, many cases of the disease go undiagnosed and unreported. We visited West Pokot and compiled the following report for you.
The beautiful melodies by the birds signify a new dawn for you and I, but mean another long day of agony and misery for these women in West Pokot County. They look pregnant. Not quite. Look again. This is not a maternity hospital with expectant mothers, but a hospital that exclusively treats Kalaza, a disease that has many, including men, trekking kilometers of a treacherous journey just to have a chance at another day.
Kilomita mingi sana. Sielewi kilomita, sielewi sababu ninajua tu kwa transport. Natumia 1,500 niingia hapa, kurudi 1,500. Natumia 3,000.
Kalaza, which means black fever in Hindi, is transmitted by a sandfly, an insect found in dry areas. The disease causes a fever associated with darkening in complexion. Many residents here did not know of this strange disease that affected them. Many confuse it for malaria, but over the years, they have come to know the signs and symptoms associated with it and where to seek treatment.
Yani choto inawaka kabisa. Nguvu hakuna. Basi nikaona sababu nimeishi na nguvu kabisa. Kaona pengine hii ni ile Kalaza.
Alikuwa anasema anakuwa na joto tu mingi. Alafu anasema mtoto akuli vizuri na tumbo imeanza kuwa kubwa na mtoto ameanza kukonda. Hizo ndio sasa ile dalili unaweza kuona.
These women have their spleens enlarged to an extent they can be felt on the abdomen, giving them this false pregnancy. Others may suffer from a drop in the blood levels or a skin rash. This girl, putting on a brave face and a calm demeanor, has to undergo 2 daily mandatory injections for the next 14 days. She has only done 3. These injections used to take 30 days. Until this combination treatment was introduced to lessen the days. This is the case for majority of the patients here. They tell us that it is not easy.
Ile hali ambapo mgonjwa akikuja, anakuja ni kama amechukua muda mrefu nyumbani. So wakati utataka kujaribu matibabu, wengine anaweza kuwa wamekuja late. So ukianzisha matibabu, hiyo inasababisha pia inawashinda nguvu ama unapata damu imeisha. Tunahofia kwamba pengine kuna wagonjwa wanakufa huko nyumbani ama kwa hospitali zingine na haijagunduliwa kwa sababu ya hiyo ugonjwa ya Kalaza.
Days of hard work under the scorching sun could end with the uncertainty of the infectious bite of the fly, a bite that may plunge one into desperation and agony. As the others make their way out of this treatment center, many more arrive. They arrive hoping for a different diagnosis or at least a different mode of treatment.